Hey guys and dolls, welcome back to the channel. Today the video is going to be mostly about diesel trucks. I'm going to go over why I purchased my truck, 6.4 diesel. For any of you diesel guys out there, you know that the 6.4 does not have a great reputation. I did all kinds of research before I bought the truck, so I'm going to go over a little bit of why I still bought the truck, knowing all of that. And just to touch on, the evolution of, diesels, as far as consumers go within Ford pickup trucks. So Ford had a great run with their 7.3 liter diesel. It was built by International. It was very reliable, very dependable, did not have very much power, but, diesels are also very, very reliable, especially the 7.3 equivalent diesel for Dodge. The Rams was the Cummins 5.9. Very dependable diesel. They got tons of use and work out of them, years, miles. There's diesels 5.9s out there that got 1.5 million miles before having to be scrapped because there was a crack in the block. And there's 7.3 liters out there that have 1 million miles on them as well. Unfortunately, not trying to get political here, but the EPA did start cracking down on diesel emissions right around the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. So Ford, my knowledge is Ford. I have a 6.4, as I've said. Ford introduced the 6 liter around 2002, 2003, like I said. And that was Ford's step into, trying to control their diesel emissions a little bit. So that, with the 6.0, they introduced the EGR, the exhaust gas recirculation. So how that worked was, once the truck, burned fuel, fuel was injected into the piston, it was ignited. A small percentage, I think it was 10 to 15%, don't quote me on that, was actually recirculated of that burnt fuel, the exhaust, back into the engine. So instead of being able to inhale clean air from the environment, the engine was actually inhaling clean air plus already burnt exhaust fumes. Not good. There were a lot of issues with the 6.0, also built by International. And then by 2007, when I believe 2007 was the last year of the 6.0, by 2007, a lot of these issues had been corrected, which unfortunately, it's 4 years. A lot of people are pretty impatient when it comes to, like, oh, I want stuff fixed, I want it fixed now. But then the EPA increased the regulations on diesel and diesel exhaust again. So with that, Ford introduced the 6.4 liter in 2008. My truck, I got the Carfax. I'm going to go over that in a little bit here too. My truck, the serial number was actually created in May of 2007. So I have one of the first 6.4 diesels that Ford created. Original engine, original transmission, taken care of very well. But with the 6.4, Ford introduced the DPF, the diesel particulate filter, which, along with your catalytic converter, it filters diesel exhaust. Unfortunately, one of the major downfalls, in my opinion, is that they didn't design it so that you or I or anybody could just go in and replace the filter like your air filter, like your fuel filters, like your oil filters. Unfortunately, the downfall for the 6.4 came when the truck had to do what's called a regen. So when the truck regens, they still have regens now with the 6.7 for Cummins and Ford, for the Duramax, the 6.6 as well. But when an engine regens, in the exhaust stroke, it dumps extra fuel into the exhaust stroke which increases the exhaust gas temperatures. And my understanding is that the exhaust gas temperatures can get up to 1500, 1600 degrees just to burn off those particulates in the DPF. Now, that's fine and good. Burns everything off, right? Great. That causes extra wear and tear and stress on the engine components. Now, anybody that's done any kind of research, you would know this already, but the best way to counter a regen is to get on the highway. Get on the highway when you know that your truck is in a regen. Get on the highway and just drive. If a truck can do a full regen, I believe it's 30 to 40 minutes, 30 to 45, maybe an hour, depending on how clogged the DPF is. But if you can get on the highway and go 2,000 RPM, 3,500 RPM, and just get that full burn, then DPF should be cleaned out very well. Unfortunately, especially for the 6.4, there was a lot of people that were starting to buy trucks around that time with the diesel 6.0, 6.4, equivalent for Chevy and Dodge, that were just grocery getters. They would just take the truck and they would go to soccer practice, baseball practice, gymnastics, hockey, go get groceries, etc. They weren't really using the truck, the diesel, for what it was built for. Diesel is, I'll get into this in a couple other videos, diesels are very expensive to run. I have put some money into my truck, but none of it has to do with the regen or anything like that. But anyway, people were buying these trucks as just grocery getters, so they weren't able to get good full burn-offs of the DPF. So the truck would go into regen, people would jump in the truck and go down to the grocery store, and they'd only run the truck for 10 minutes. They'd shut the truck off in the middle of a regen. So then when they went to go start the truck back off, the truck tried to go back into a regen, and they were just driving from the grocery store back to the house, 10, 15 minutes, shut it off, and then there would be another regen. It would be shut off in the middle of another regen. Not good. Another way to counteract that is, again, if you're actually using your truck to tow, then your EGTs would get much higher and the truck would essentially never have to worry about going into a regen because you were working the truck the way it was built, the way it was supposed to be used for. Now, I use my truck to go get groceries sometimes as well. I use my truck to go get Christmas presents. But I still drive it enough on the highways that it is able to get a full, clean regen in. Now, what would happen if the truck regened a lot, if it didn't complete its regens? You would start degrading the oil. AMS oil is great oil, regardless of if you use AMS oil or the cheapest diesel oil out there. Eventually, oil does degrade to the point where it's not usable. It's not doing anything anymore. So, if you constantly do your oil changes, half the manufacturer's oil change intervals. Now, I think my truck is, I think they recommend an oil change every 7,500 miles, 7,500 miles. I try to change my oil anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 miles. I don't use the most expensive all the time. I just change my oil and I put Rotella T4 in. Which is probably one of the cheaper oils out there, but my oil also is hardly ever old by the time I change it. It's still, I just changed it and it still looked, diesel oil goes black very soon after you put new oil in, but you can still tell when it's still newer and hasn't been used for very long. That's a great way to counteract the regen within these trucks. The oil, the better the oil, the newer the oil, fresher the oil, it really prevents the regen from causing excess wear and tear on the internal engine components because it's such a the Regen causes so many issues, increases so much heat, that the fresher the oil, the newer the oil, the better the supplements within the oil, the different chemicals in the oil, the newer they're going to be, the better they're going to be to protect the truck, because it's newer oil, and oil is used to maintain lubricity, obviously, as many of you know, and cooling. So as the truck increases its EGTs, the oil is going to help maintain the truck, stay cool, and many of you know, most of you know, heat is a huge issue when it comes to making sure everything stays mechanically sound and keeps running. The cooler you can keep your temperatures, the better off the truck, the car, the chainsaw, whatever you guys are using with oil. That's the best way. The colder you can keep it, the better. Now, obviously, you know, in southwestern Pennsylvania, I think it was 15 degrees this morning. You know, you need to let it warm up a little bit. So, you know, don't think that, like, oh, you know, I'm going to start my truck up and the oil's going to be 20 degrees. I can just dog on it. No, can't do that. Got to try to keep it, you know, in operating temperature. I think the ideal operating temperature for my truck is right around 175, 190. Usually, or not usually, but every now and then when I'm towing, hauling, my oil temperature can get up to close to 200. Very rarely goes very far up above 200. But with that being said, you know, why I bought my truck. Let's talk about that a little bit. So I was looking for a truck. I just started my tree company. I needed something so that I could haul wood back and forth from people's houses. You know, I sell wood as well. I needed to get it to my house, to the junkyard, etc. I needed a truck. You know, it's really hard to have a a tree company without any way to move wood, right? Like I can fall a tree, I can cut up a down tree, but customers want them off their property, right? So found my truck. I am the third owner of the truck. The first two owners were in Arizona and Southern California. So the truck has hardly any rust on it. There's little spots here and there, but no rust. We're going to undercoat it this coming year, so I'll show you some video and talk about that a little bit. But if you're looking at a used vehicle, you need to try to find something that does not have any rust on it. Now, if there's mechanical issues, you know, depending on how good you are with a wrench, how much money you have, you can fix those. You can't really fix rust. You know, replacing a bed is expensive. I looked at one truck that the bed was barely hanging onto the frame. The bed would have needed to be replaced on top of the fact that the truck was going to be more than what I paid for my truck. You know, you need to keep an eye on rust. You know, if you're going to go buy a used vehicle, used truck, you know, fire it up. All right, great, sounds good. Do not forget to dive under the truck. Even somebody that is not very good mechanically can still get underneath a vehicle and look and see like what all it has. You know, we all know what rust looks like. If there's too much rust on there, then walk away. You don't owe that seller anything. So, on top of that, the truck doesn't have any rust. I knew it had the 6.4 liter. I was a little bit worried about that. But the Carfax that I got with my truck as well. The Carfax showed that the previous two owners, every time they had to get their oil changed, they went to a reputable establishment, Jiffy Lube. They went to Ford dealerships. And every time that they had the oil changed, that came up on the Carfax. I think it got its oil changed 45 times, if I remember correctly. You know, and it showed the mileage as well. I think the most that they went was around that 7,500 mile, the recommendation, but most of the time they got the oil changed every 5,000 miles. So I felt very comfortable buying the truck. I turned it on, started up, dove underneath it. My cousin went with me. Hopefully he can join us on some of these videos that I post. He dove under the truck, and the truck looked beautiful. He gave me the thumbs up as far as rust goes. We talked a lot about buying the 6.4, but I was the one that ended up pulling the trigger on the truck. But the diesel mechanics I took it to 2 diesel mechanics, and they both said that the truck is probably one of the best, if not the best looking 6.4 and running 6.4 diesels that they have ever seen. Now, were they blowing smoke up my butt, knowing that, like, oh, you know, I might get business out of this guy? I don't know. But I'm a very trusting guy, and, you know, I paid them good money. I paid them for their time to look at the truck, hook their computers up to it. They checked blow-by, they checked EGTs. I'm hoping that they didn't just blow smoke. And, you know, knock on wood, but my understanding is that my truck is in great shape, and I plan on babying it. So, you know, as far as plans for the truck, or what I've done for the truck already. One thing that I did have to do, the oil cooler was clogged. So that was pretty expensive. It was about $3,000. They had to lift the cab off, put a new oil cooler in it. But other than that, there hasn't really been any issues. I did pull the trigger on putting a FASS, F-A-S-S, 165 fuel system in it, low pressure fuel system. Basically, again, just to protect the truck, to protect the engine. You know, these 6.4 diesels in general, they don't like running low on fuel, low on oil. So I just said, you know what? I want to protect my investment, so I'm going to put this real nice fuel pump in it. So I did that. One of the reasons, or the main reason, my understanding of why the oil cooler clogs in these trucks, it is a common issue, is because of the sand that's used during the casting of the engine block. And you could mitigate that issue if you did proper engine flushes, coolant flushes. I saw on the Carfax that they did one engine flush. I believe that with the 6.4s, they recommended an engine flush every 2,500 miles. You know, I'm also going to be putting on a coolant filter onto my truck. I'm going to show you all that. I'm going to put an oil bypass filter on the truck as well. And that's basically just so that, you know, any kind of filter that doesn't restrict flow on the vehicles, do it. Protect your investment. Yes, it is expensive, but, you know, if I pay $240 and I install a coolant filter and I don't have to worry about an oil cooler ever again, that's worth it, right? You know, putting a bypass oil filters aren't 100% necessary, but if that increases the longevity of the oil, even though I'm still planning on doing my oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, if that increases the longevity of the oil, protects the engine more, I'm gonna do it, right? It's always cheaper to keep her and maintain than it is to constantly repair and replace. And especially on 6.4s and diesels in general, it can get very, very expensive. You know, if you guys like this video, please comment. Please let me know that you need to see, or you want to see more content regarding my truck. You know, again, it's the second video. Thank you to the people that watched the first video. You know, I appreciate that. I know I'm not one to really pander or beg or ask for things, but you guys can like and subscribe and comment. Let me know what kind of material you're looking for and stuff that you're interested in. Like I said, I'm not a diesel mechanic. I'm not an arborist, but I have a lot of experience with tree work. I got a brand new chainsaw for Christmas this year, so I'm gonna have a bunch of different type of content that I can upload. But yes, if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions, what I can touch on, any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. And I'm looking forward to uploading more videos. So thank you again for watching. This time of year, happy holidays for anybody. Anybody that doesn't participate, I hope you have a great New Year. I think everybody at least celebrates New Year's. So thank you guys and dolls for watching, and I'll be back next time. Thanks.